Good afternoon, 8th hour Algebra 2. This video is for you. We're trying to decide who to say hi to. Sydney, your name came up, and there was a lot of smack talk all of a sudden, specifically from Kessa. So just note that she's talking trash, and if you'd like to text her later or something, maybe you should. So, oh, now she's afraid that you're going to beat her up. I told her though that you're nowhere near as strong as she is. So, all right. Okay, here we go. Let's get started. We're going to do a few examples. We are going to do 3 different skills that we've learned over the past few days. So today is a good day where we put all of our learning together. Okay? So we're going to start with quadratic inequalities. You got 4 problems like this, and we want to graph these. Do you remember when we graphed these where we started with? What was the first characteristic that we found? The vertex. What's the vertex in this problem? 3, 2. So we plot 3, 2. What's the second characteristic we look for? What's the direction? It's up. Very good. Third? Nope. Solid or dashed? Is this solid or dashed? Dashed, why? Because you look at this piece, it's not equal to. So it's a dashed parabola going up. There we go. Now, how do I decide where to shade? What do I do with my pencil or with my pen? I put it on the vertex right here. Put it on the vertex, and then, so I guess they can't see us. I'll use red marker for you 8th hour. So I'm putting my pen on the vertex, and then since it says y is greater than, where do I move? I move up, and up places me inside the parabola. So where do I shade? On the inside. So if I give you questions like that on the test, are you going to be able to do them? Okay, so those are the first kind of questions that you're going to be asked to do. Now, this first one was in vertex form. The next 2 are in standard form. And we're not going to do them, but I'll at least set this part up. In order to find the vertex, if it's in standard form, what formula do we use? Negative b divided by 2a. That gives us our x value. What do we do to get our y value? Plug it in. So you guys could do those 3 problems later. Flip it over on the back side, and we'll try these now. You'll test sometime next week. Probably next week Friday. So, well, we'll see. The quarter ends next week Friday, right? So, kind of got to look at your grades, see where they're at. But I don't know. We'll see if we get it in or not. I don't know. We'll see how next week goes. This is x squared plus 5x minus 14 is greater than 0. The previous side had y and x. This one only has x. So how many axes do I have when I do this problem? Just 1. So I graph this with just 1 axis. I take my inequality and I set it equal to 0. Does it factor? What 2 numbers multiply to negative 14 that add a positive 5? X minus 2 and x plus 7 equals 0. So what are my 2 solutions? 2 and negative 7. So I plot those. Open or close circles? Open. Now let's look at the original problem. Are we trying to decide where this quadratic is positive, or are we trying to decide where this quadratic is negative? It says x squared plus 5x minus 14 is greater than 0. So we're looking for where it is positive. That's what we're wondering. Where is it positive? Now, if we were to graph that, is that a parabola that goes up, or is it a parabola that goes down? It's a parabola that goes up. So I'm going to draw it right through my x-intercepts. What's that? No, we're just using the graph to determine where it's positive and negative. Remember, we got two methods for determining positive and negative. We can either test points or look at the graph. And looking at the graph is quicker and easier. So, Parker, to help you kind of see this, the graph is positive if it's above the x-axis. It's negative if it's below. So is it positive or negative over here? Positive. How about in between -7 and 2? There it's negative, and here it's positive. So we're wondering, where is it positive? It's positive there, and it's positive there. Positive in those two places. Is that a conjunction or a disjunction? Disjunction. So the last thing we need to do is write an inequality. How does x compare to -7? It's less than -7. We have the break in the middle, so we put in or. And how does x compare to +2? X greater than +2. So that's our inequality. This is the final solution. That is the solution set. If you pick any number that's less than -7, or if you pick a number that's bigger than 2, you're going to end up with it's going to satisfy the inequality. It will satisfy the inequality. I'm going to tell you right now that you can always use the quadratic formula. For this one, you have to. Have to use the quadratic formula for D. But I will say that B factors, and I will tell you that C factors. Now, if you can't get it to factor, then that's fine. You can use the quadratic formula instead. But I'll give you a hint by starting out right there. Okay? Then let's do a last problem together. Let's try to do number 4. These are the types of problems that we were working on yesterday. It says a football is kicked into the air with an initial velocity of 40 feet per second, initial height of 5 feet. Use the function h of t equals -16t squared plus vt plus h to find the maximum height, the time the ball reached maximum height, and the time the ball hit the ground. So these are the type of questions that we left off with yesterday. So first I need a function. I need to write an equation. h of t, equals what? What goes first? -16 t squared. What do I put in place of v? 40. The initial velocity is 40. H is height. What's the initial height? 5. So that is my function. Now, I'll show you how to do it using both your calculator as well as doing it by hand. A says find the maximum height of the ball. In order to find the maximum height, what is that point that we're looking for if we find the maximum? Starts with a V, rhymes with vertex. Vertex, yep, we're looking for the vertex. In order to find the vertex, what equation do we use? -b divided by twice the A value. So in this problem, if you do -b, -40 divided by 2 times -16 is -32. I can help you with your calculator right after this. -40 divided by -32 is 1.25. What does that 1.25 mean? What does that mean in the problem? That's the x value, or in this problem, the t value. What does t stand for? Time. So at time 1.25, the ball reaches its maximum height. How do I find the maximum height? I plug it in. So we'll plug in 1.25 into our function. Negative 16 times 1.25 quantity squared plus 40 times 1.25 plus 5. And we get 30. I got 30. Is that what other people got? I'll come check your calculator later. I think that 30 should be, yeah, 30 is good. So the first question, A, says the maximum height. If this is our vertex, what's the maximum height? 30. Question B says, what's the time that the ball reached the maximum height? 1.25 seconds. I'm going to show you really quick, if you wanted to use your calculator, how you would do that. We go into y equals, and we type in our function, negative 16 x squared plus 40x plus 5. I graph my function. I can't see the top of it. If I go in my window, which value should I change? The y max. I'll go up to 50. Maybe I'll see it then. I now press graph, and I can see the top of it. If I want to find the maximum, I press second, trace. Which one do I select? Number 4 for maximum. I'm going to go to my maximum. I should move to the left of it, press enter, and then I should move to the right of it, press enter, and enter on guess. And if you notice, we come up with 1.25 and 30. So if you wanted to use your calculator, that's another way you could find that maximum point. Last thing we'll do is we'll find the x, or we'll find c by hand, and then we will also do it using the calculator. Time the ball hit the ground. This is a good question. If the ball goes up into the air and hits the ground, what's the height of it when it hits the ground? 0. So what are we looking for? The x-intercept. How do we find x-intercepts? We zero it out and we factor or use the quadratic formula. So quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by twice the a value. That's what we have. And our function is negative 16t squared plus 40t plus 5. Let's plug it in the quadratic formula and see what we get, and then we'll know when it hits the ground. What is negative b plus or minus square root of b squared? 40 squared is 1,600. Minus 4 times a is negative 16. C is 5. Divided by twice my a value, or negative 32. How many negatives are underneath your square root sign? 2. So it could be plus or minus. It will be plus because there's 2. They will cancel each other out. Okay. I'm just plugging in the values of the quadratic formula. What do I do first? 1,600 plus 4, or 4 times 16 times 5? 4 times 16 times 5 is 320, and then I add that to 1,600. I get 1,920. So it looks like my quadratic formula, I can rewrite it to look like this. Negative 40 plus or minus the square root of 1,920, all divided by negative 32. So we've got to figure out what do we get when we punch that in? Looks like I got two calculators out. Negative 40 plus the square root of 1,920. Whoop. We got one too many parentheses. Divided by negative 32. We get negative 0.12. How many answers do you get when you use the quadratic formula? We get 2, generally speaking. So we do negative 40 minus the square root of 1,920. And then I divide that by negative 32, and I get 2.61 or 2.62. So you tell me, did the ball hit the ground at negative 0.1 seconds or at 2.62 seconds? 2.62 seconds. We're going to have a positive number for when it hits the ground. So we just solved C. If you don't want to do that by hand, whoop, if you don't want to do that by hand, you can again graph it, and you want to find this spot. You press second trace, and which one do you select? Number 2, which is 0. I go over to my x-intercept, which is about right there. I need to go to the left of it. Press enter. I need to move to the right of it. I'm not to the right of it yet. Now I am. Press enter. Enter on guess. And it comes up with 2.62. So you can see that you could use your calculator or do the work by hand, either one. So I've done an example of each problem for you. I want you to do one more of these and then 3 of each of the others. You have the remainder of the hour to do that. Good luck. I will come around and help you. And to 8th Hour and Sydney Frazier, we hope you have a great Friday and a great weekend.